Hello, I'm Snailgaming, and today we're going to go over 6 new neutral skills added to Project Xandata. 2 skills for each of the 3 Xandat classes. 3 of these skills were added in a patch about a month ago, and the other 3 skills were added with the launch of Season 1, just a few days ago. I'm going to give you guys a brief breakdown of what the ability does, and then some nice tips, strengths, weaknesses, and playstyles that you can use to your advantage when using or facing these abilities. This would be a kinda long video all in one go, so I'm gonna split it into 2 parts for you guys, with 3 skills in each part. Let's jump right into it. Starting with the agent, we have Feign Lotus. T-spin of death. Leap into the air while slashing enemies in your way. Hitting an enemy will make the player cloaked for a short duration. Using this while cloaked or invisible increases speed, damage, and range. The Feign Lotus is basically an AoE melee attack that lunges you forward and upward. This gives it pretty good range as you'll damage anyone in your way, and is great for reaching targets either in front of or above you. Its max range to hit someone is about 7 or 8 meters. It can potentially hit multiple targets if they're close together. It has a 25-second cooldown, and if you do hit an opponent with it, it places you in partial invisibility. This invisibility is actually pretty powerful, lasting for 8 seconds on Ice Agent and for a whopping 12 seconds on Shadow Agent, whose passive extends invisible duration. Lotus deals 200 damage, which is just a little less than the 250 of a regular melee. However, you can actually hit an enemy with this ability twice in a row, dealing 400 damage. The double hit happens pretty commonly, but only if the enemy is in the air when you lunge for them, so you slash them while going up and again while going down. For this reason, I like to use this ability when I see an opponent jump to get away from me, since I can deal double damage. Something to look out for on this ability though, and on all melee abilities in the game really, is that you sometimes will be doing a regular melee if you're too close to the enemy and looking at them, instead of triggering your melee ability. So try and have a little distance before using the Lotus. The ability also pairs great with the shotgun. A combo I like is to slide into someone and then shotgun and melee them, but I feel that way too often the melee fails to register, either because of lag or because the opponent is moving away too fast. However, with the Feign Lotus, your melee gets AoE and extra range. That pretty much guarantees that you'll hit your target. It's a great finisher. However, the Lotus doesn't only have to be used for damage. It's a great ability for closing the gap on your opponent, or just for overall movement around the map. Sometimes you have to be a bit careful though with the movement of this skill. Also, sometimes the Lotus is a little janky and just cancels mid-air, or it doesn't launch you off the ground when spinning, or it launches you too far off the ground, which is actually kind of fun. But most of the time it works pretty alright. Hopefully any bugs with it will get fixed soon enough. The ability is also meant to have extra speed, damage, and range if you are partially or fully invisible when activating it, but I tested a lot of different ways to get this to trigger and none of them seemed to work. It's likely just a bug that will get ironed out soon. I'll be sure to pin a comment in the description of this video and the next one with any fixes or changes to any of the abilities we're going over in these videos. Finally, the Lotus is also just a nice flex after killing someone. Kill them, then do a little ballerina Lotus dance on their dead body. It has 5 times the flair and 10 times the elegance that a simple teabag has. Plus, you'll probably end up doing this accidentally if you kill someone with one shotgun shot, but do the Lotus as a follow-up anyways. Next up is Feign Death. Bam! On use places a special buff on the agent that triggers when they receive enough damage. Upon activation, you leave behind a fake corpse as you go into true invisibility for a few moments, then regular invisibility after that. Any hostile action, weapon fire, skill usage, will immediately break either of the invisibility states. Boozled, additionally, when activated, gives the agent the Vengeance buff. Vengeance instantly puts the agent's special melee off cooldown and allows them to use it twice without cooldown, within a short duration. So basically Feign Death gives the agent a very unique ability, the ability to fake their own death. How this works is you activate the ability and it places a buff on you that lasts 8 seconds. If you take damage from any source during these 8 seconds, even if it's self-damage, will trigger the perk, dropping a dead clone of your body on the ground to confuse your enemy, as well as giving you full invisibility for 1 second and partial invisibility for 3 additional seconds. Both of which oddly seem to be the same amount of time for Ice and Shadow Agent. As well as resetting your melee ability cooldown and allowing you to use your melee ability twice for up to 13 seconds after Feign triggers. That's a lot to take in, so let's look at how to use this one step at a time. Basically, you want to use Feign when you're in a fight where you want to trick your opponent into thinking you're dead, as the ability will drop your dead body on the ground and make you go invisible, making it seem like you're dead. You can either use this as a means to escape, or as a means of catching your opponent off guard and killing them. Of course, this ability will be better against newer players who will fall for your little death stunt, as compared to more experienced players who know how the abilities work and won't get fooled as easily. Even against experienced players, it can distract them for a second though, which might be enough for you to win the fight or escape. In addition to this though, Feign does have a pretty nice effect with the melee cooldown. When Feign activates, it resets your melee cooldown, so you can use your melee right before using Feign, and then you'll get it back when it activates. Further, when Feign activates, it gives you 2 stacks of Vengeance, which can be seen on the left of the screen. These stacks basically just tell you that you can use your melee ability 2 more times before it goes on cooldown. So technically you can use your melee ability 3 times in a row through use of Feign. Just use your melee ability, Feign, use it 2 more times. And the Vengeance stacks won't go away until 13 seconds after your Feign triggers, which is quite a while. I haven't experimented too much with what melee abilities would work best with this, but I encourage you guys to experiment with it. I think all the melee abilities would be viable, but I imagine something like Falling Lotus or Blade Dash could be good for dealing damage to your opponent and getting the upper hand. Warp Blade could be good because you can just keep teleporting around and confuse them, and Ice Kunai could be a good damage dealer if you have good aim. And otherwise, you could just spam Ice Kunai to get your armor back on Ice Agent via his passive. When playing against this ability, just be aware who you're shooting at. If you're fighting an agent, always be on the lookout for them using this ability, so you don't get fooled. If they suddenly go from full health to dropping dead after a little pistol shot, that's a dead giveaway. Also note that it doesn't actually register as a kill in the kill feed, and it doesn't say you eliminated that player in the bottom of the screen when somebody uses Feign, so it's not so hard to catch people using it if you're aware. Personally, I like to look for it saying eliminated XX taught the lunch bully XX when fighting an agent. When Season 1 just dropped, I didn't even realize this ability existed for like half a dozen matches. I could have sworn I kept seeing one guy die, so I'd focus on other things, and then he would just come up behind me and kill me. Of course, if I knew the Feign ability existed, I wouldn't have been fooled as easily, but it just goes to show that it can be pretty powerful against people who aren't expecting it. Also, do note that Feign won't do much if you get one shot, other than giving you a flashy death with 2 bodies dropping to the ground. If you're using Feign, stay clear of using it when you're super low health or if the opponent is rocking a high damage weapon. If you're against Feign, try to shotgun or snipe that pesky agent out of existence. Moving on to the marksman skills. First, we have the threat scanner. I see you. Throw a scanning device that attaches itself onto walls. Upon landing, the scanner activates to reveal all enemies in an area around it until it expires or is destroyed. The threat scanner is a nifty little tool for the marksman. It will allow you to see anyone within its radius no matter how far away they are or how many walls are between you and them. Do note that this only works as long as they are within the radius of the scanner. It has no lingering effect, so the moment your opponent leaves the radius of the scanner, no more wall hacks for you. Luckily, it is a fairly big area that the scanner highlights, and it will of course highlight enemies even if they are on the other side of a wall, floor, or ceiling. The scanner can be destroyed, but it has a fair bit of health for such a tiny thing at insert here hit points. I don't really remember off the top of my head, but Editor Snail's always got my back. One big weakness to the scanner is that you can't throw it as far as you'd like to sometimes. However, if you jump and aim upwards to arc it, you can usually lob it a lot further than if you're just looking straight. The scanner has a 15-second cooldown and lasts for 10 seconds, which means you could potentially have a scanner pulsing for 2/3 of the match, which ain't too shabby. You should note that the scanner won't highlight anyone when it's traveling through the air though. It's only once it's landed on the ground or a wall or ceiling that it'll actually scan. So the third scanner is a pretty useful utility. If you're afraid of someone camping around a corner, just throw a scanner to scope it out. If there is someone there, they'll get highlighted and you'll have a nice advantage in the ensuing fight once you slide around the corner. But do be warned that it is pretty obvious to opponents when they've been scanned by a threat scanner, since it does have a pretty visible pulse, a scan sound, and it even shows the scanned on the left side of the screen. Newer people might not notice this though, like Snoodle here, and will get destroyed accordingly. The scanner can also be good if you're trying to escape someone. You can throw it behind you and keep running, and when the opponent runs through it, you can look back to get an idea of where they are and possibly try to outmaneuver or hide from them by keeping a close eye on them through the walls. If you are being chased, you can also just duck around a corner, throw the scanner, and if your opponent wants to keep pursuing you, they'll have to run through the scanner and you'll get a good chance to shotgun them or do some other shenanigans when they run around the corner. Be sure to cover all angles though. A more fun use of the scanner can also be with the Wind Marksman. Since you have so many knockback abilities, you can plant it near a ledge, hide, and when it scans someone, you can jump out and knock them into a pit at the perfect moment. A use that I personally like with the scanner is what I call the cat and mouse. If you're in a fight at low health, just throw the scanner and run behind some cover. Your opponent will chase you, but as long as you keep an eye on them, you can make sure they never catch up to you. At least until you've started regenerating your health so you can get back into the fight. I also recommend that you try and throw the scanner where it's less easy to shoot. Like if you're trapping a doorway or corner, don't just throw it in the middle of the doorway, but rather on the wall on the side that the opponent is least likely to come from. That way they can't destroy it as well. Something to keep in mind too is that although the scanner is meant to give you information about the opponent's whereabouts, it can do the exact opposite too. It's a pretty noticeable big pulse it sends out, so if an opponent sees that, they know you're probably nearby somewhere. If you're playing against the threat scanner and get scanned, I recommend you get out of it as fast as possible, potentially trying to push the marksman if you know where they are, because otherwise you're just a sitting duck. Also, do keep in mind you can destroy the threat scanner, but it is rather small and might take a few shots to destroy, so unless you're sure you won't get pushed while you're distracted by destroying it, I'd opt for just getting out of there. If the marksman uses the scanner to cut off a path when you're chasing, either chase them with extreme caution or take a quick second to shoot it before walking in. Potentially you could also find an alternative route to get to them, but that's usually a little harder. That's it for part 1, ladies and gentlemen, but I'll put part 2 right here on screen for you, so you can check out the marksman's second new ability and the Juggernaut's abilities, one of which is my favorite ability in the game so far. Peace out.